Yes.
One question from the viewers. He's
Okay.
asking about a one Shalagram Shila named Lakshmi Virahadev. So this Shila has two names combined together. So what about why these two names are combined, and by what principle? What is the story about it?
Well, I think he's referring to the Shalagram at Sri Chaitanya Saraswat Mat in Navadvip. And that, we can't say so much about that, other than what we've heard from Srila Guru Maharaj, that this is identified by those who have the capacity to make such assessment. There are different ways to verify or identify, and so they identified this as Varahadev, and Lakshmi is implied because we're talking about Vaikuntha. Vaikuntha is the domain of Lakshmi and Narayan. So, for to be Vaikuntha proper, there's always implied or otherwise Lakshmi Devi, Shakti and Shaktiman. Right? In Bhagavad Gita, there's Bahunan Janmanamante Jnanavan Mam Prapadyate Vasudeva Sarvamiti Samahatma Sudurlabha. So here, some importance is being given to Vasudeva, meaning the first distinct discerning of the personality of Godhead. So we're moving from the material conception to the spiritual conception. The personal conception of divinity, but for it to begin in earnest, he has to be accompanied by his potency, his feminine counterpart. And in Vaikuntha, that means Lakshmi Devi. Vaikuntha is the unlimited world. There are innumerable spiritual planets. So Varahadev has some representation there. So when this generally, one should be very cautious about the worship of Shalagram Shila, because that is the Vaikuntha style worship and very strict. We're worshiping Gupta Govardhan under the guidance of Srila Guru Maharaj, Srila Saraswati Thakur, Raga Marg type worship, more lenient, not requiring the same strictness of the Shalagram. So that deity was in one mat, and as the story goes from Srila Guru Maharaj, some dissension was there amongst the devotees. They're quarreling and so on. So then some devotees are always wondering, what would be the root cause of that? So they thought, maybe we're not qualified to worship this deity. And so then they took the deity to another place. Same thing happened. So then they're starting to become nervous and thinking, maybe we're too offensive, we're too fallen, we're not qualified. So then they thought, who is supremely qualified beyond the shadow of a doubt of anyone? Srila Sridhar Maharaj. Let's take the deity and give him, then we'll all get some relief. So they brought the deity to Srila Guru Maharaj and his Bhattacharya Brahmin. Right? We should remember his family name was Bhattacharya. He was born Ramendra Chandra Bhattacharya, Sanskrit-speaking family, high-class Brahmins. When he joined Gaudiya Math, Srila Saraswati Thakur invoked the Gita sloka, Yad Yad Achariti Shrestha, Tad Tad Evetaro Jana, that if a man of this quality joins our mission, it'll be good for the prestige of the mission, that kind of thing. So they thought submitting to Srila Sridhar Maharaj will be the safe path. So Srila Guru Maharaj accepted, and they identified a Varahadev, and as Lucky, Lakshmi, Varaha implied, and he took his seat on the altar at the Sri Chaitanya Saraswati Mat in Navadvip, and his particular prasad or bhog offering they like to make is the param anna, sweet rice, on special occasions, but in general every day actually for his pleasure that sort of offering was made. But this was an extraordinary case, something exceptional, and Srila Guru Maharaj is not advising this type of worship to his followers. But it's interesting to note in the Mat Pranam, Srimats Chaitanya Saraswata Mata Bara Udgita Kirtir Jayasrim Bibrat Sambati Ganga Tata Nikata Nabdvipa Koladri Raje. So in the Adriraj Gupta Govardhan, that section of Navadvip, we mentioned recently the Aparad Banjaner pot, where all the Aparadis offenders were forgiven their offenses. Kola Dweep proper, Navadvip proper, in that area. Koler Ganj, Koler Danga, that's where the mat is. And if you do the research, you'll find some ancient connection in that place to Varahadev. So, and there's some mystic intimation there in the Mat Pranam Mantram. And that's about as much as I can say about that now. Yeah.
Last question is that we know that Kunti Devi is always praying for obstacles. And
not always.
Always?
Now she's always praying. She wakes up, she's praying, let this be the worst day of my life.
For us devotees, sometimes we are always praying that we can have some
obstacle-free.
No,
we're also praying.
To have obstacles, to check our
We
faith.
are?
Sometimes.
Sometimes we are, okay.
Yes, to have these obstacles to test us if we have the sincere faith. So is it a normal desire and is it possible?
No, it's not normal. How many students are praying for the examination? Well, Asians excluded. Because that's the joke in America. On Friday, when all the kids are going home, and some like Chinese girl, Asian kid will go to the teacher, "You forgot to give us homework." So they're a special group. But in other words, look who is Kunti. You know, Kunti Devi. She is so exalted. We heard about her glories from Srila Prabhupada, and when we're reading that part of the Bhagavatam, what we call Parayan, just like with Chaitanya Charitamrita, every day reading continuously. Then when you get to the end, start over, read again. If you're lucky in your lifetime, you can do that many, many times. Just think, there are devotees, they may not be so known, but you see them in the various mats, and our mats in India, and others as well. The faithful devotees who assemble every day in the Nath Mandir and hear Chaitanya Bhagavat, Chaitanya Charitamritam, Gita, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Srimad Bhagavatam, day after day, year after year, their whole lives. And also the songs of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, the songs of Narottam. What a fortunate life. Also, that's being here. You don't always see me, but I'm always listening. How beautiful the kirtan sounded this evening. Really, very sweet to once again hear these things, what's expressed from the melted, affectionate heart of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. These songs, there's, as it says in the song, so beautiful. The arati of Giriraj Govardhan and Gauranga Mahaprabhu and the Gaura Saraswat arati with Radha Govinda Sundar. The whole world will be charmed. So Kunti Devi, we know her as mother of the Pandavas, which would be enough. Right? And her glories as a young girl, but the prayers of Kunti in the Bhagavatam are so beautiful, and we heard them, Srila Prabhupada Swami Maharaj, giving classes on these every day. Namashe Purusham Tvajam Ishwaram Alaksham Prakriteparam Alaksham Sarva Bhutanam Antar Bahira Vastitam Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya Cha Nanda Gopa Kumaraya Govindaya Namo Noha Namak Pankaja Nabhaya Namak Pankaja Maline Namak Pankaja Netraya Namaste Pankaja Jangrahe. How beautiful that is. We're told she's like auntie, she's in a superior position. Remember, Krishna's in his Aprakrita Leela. As the actors would say, he's in character. He's not going to break character, say, I'm divinity. Right? We could say maybe he does that in the 11th chapter of Bhagavad Gita with Arjuna. Almost apologetically, like, sorry, Arjuna. But here, he is younger than her. But Kunti knows very well who Krishna is. Very, very well. But she is such a great devotee. She doesn't want to embarrass him. Right? That we should think about also. We're expressing different things. I don't want to embarrass Krishna or his great devotees. So we're told in the 11th canto, this method of subtly indicating something is the preferred method of divine revelation. Right? And we see that's how in the world there's, heart on the sleeve, professing love and affection, and then there are more subtle ways of expressing deep matters of the heart that perhaps in the long run are more appreciated, more appreciable. Anyway, that's, a subject for discussion. Right? Sometimes East versus West. The West favoring like very overt, extroverted, professing love and appreciation, and the Eastern more reserved. Doesn't mean that there's less love there. There may be more. It's, as I say, something that could be discussed. So Kunti, really, she understands who Krishna is, but she understands the circumstances of these pastimes. And to not put Krishna in an awkward position and an embarrassed position, she's giving her obeisances in this famous prayer. Namak Pankaja Nabhaya, Namak Pankaja Maline, Namak Pankaja Netraya, Namaste Pankajangrahe. Really, we always begin at the lotus feet, as we told many times, offering the highest aspect of ourselves to the least aspect of that plane. People always wonder, why so much bowing in Asia, in India, and why? Because this is what's at the heart of the matter. Taking the head, but generally taken to be in the highest aspect of the self, and offering it to the feet, the lowest aspect. It's actually a very beautiful heartfelt gesture. So really that's what she wants to do. But in this verse, she says that in the last line, Namaste Pankajangre, to your lotus feet. Why does she do that? If she's so qualified, when that should be first, it's come last. Right? We're told, when the Raga, Bhakta, the devotees of the heart, when they give some expression, that's the new scripture. Right? Whatever it says in the books, what comes out of their hearts is higher than that. Right? It's the new religion. Right? The books have to be rewritten according to the hearts of the devotees. So she knows I am socially in a superior position to him. He is younger, and so what shall I do? She said, Namak Pankaja Nabhaya. She says, I offer my respects to your lotus navel. She began there. Namak Pankaja Maline. And then you're wearing a garland of lotuses. I'm Namak Pankaja Netraya. So lotus navel, lotus, you're wearing a garland of lotuses. I bow to that. And your eyes, you have beautiful lotus eyes. Namak Pankaja Netraya, I'm giving my obeisances to your eyes. And at last, to your lotus feet. Right? She won't allow him to escape, but so in a beautiful way, she's appearing to deal with him as a subordinate or an inferior, but yet, at last, to your lotus feet. That's where she wants to be considered in her ultimate position, as an aspiring servitor of the lotus feet of Krishna. So, the remembrance of those lotus feet. In the Bhagavatam, Abhishmitri Charanardavinde, very beautiful sloka, and perhaps in 11th canto, Guru Maharaj speaks about it. And Kunti, this is the type of devotion she possesses. We know from the past times, Kunti Devi and the Pandavas, they undergo so much trial and tribulation. Right? It's part of their pastimes. So much so that in the Brihad Bhagavatamritam, when Narada is praising the Pandavas, having gone from Shiva to Prahlad to Hanuman to the Pandavas, Yudhisthira Maharaj is deflecting that praise and saying, I am sad. It makes my heart sad to think that when people meditate on hear about our pastimes with Krishna, they will think that being a devotee means a lifetime of trouble. So they'll be discouraged. So I have mixed feelings. You're giving so much praise about our dealings with Krishna, but I'm thinking if people hear these pastimes, they'll be discouraged from taking up a life of devotion. But Narada, that's the humble expression of a devotee. But Narada, he says, no, I think what they'll take away from your pastimes with Krishna is that when a devotee is in great difficulty, at that time they can count on Krishna to help them, to save them. That's what we learn from your pastimes. No matter how difficult the circumstance may be, you find yourself surrounded by karmic circumstance, inescapably so. The devotee can rest assured that Krishna will come to their rescue. That's what we learn. So that sort of thing, Kunti Devi, she is in the optimum position to understand that principle. She's thinking, yes, when things seem to be going very nicely, materially, there's a tendency to become forgetful of our relationship with Krishna and the necessity of our relationship with Krishna. Jiva Goswami offers this in part of his analysis about the Kali Yuga, why even in the heavenly planets or the people of the Satya Yuga are praying for a birth in the Kali Yuga. Because why? In the heavenly planets, Swarga Loka, it's easy to become distracted from spiritual practices. In the Satya Yuga, more of a general spiritual, all-pervasive spiritual atmosphere, no feeling of great necessity to dive deep in the deepest aspects of reality. More dealing with the general spiritual conception. But in the Kali Yuga, which is the worst of times, a special opportunity comes, right? Here, Krishna Varnam Tusha Krishnam Sango Pangashta Parshadam Yagye Sankirtana Pre Yajanti Sumedasan. Was it? The verse that ends in Kalo Tad Hari Kirtanat. Kriteya Dhayatom Vishnum Dwarpare Paricharjayam Tretayam Yadatomake Dwarpare Paricharjayam Kalo Tad Hari. What is it? Hari Kirtanat. So, Anyway, so many slokas saying what a glorious, although it, materially speaking, appears to be the worst of times, spiritually speaking, it's the best. It's the best opportunity. Like that it's raining today, and reminds of the time when Srila Gurudev is going to the Vyas Puja celebration of Bhakti Saranga Goswami Maharaj, and it's like starting to rain on the way there, and he says to Goswami Maharaj's disciples, like, do you know what he's going to speak about today? They go, how can we know what he will say? You know, we don't understand the mind of our Gurudev. But Gurudev, well, I know. And they're saying, like, what audacity you have to think that we're his disciples and we don't know, but you know. Like, I said, yes, I know what you know. And does anyone know that sloka? Yad Tat Durdinam Manye. It says, generally, people judge the quality of the day, what's a good day or a bad day. They say, oh, you know, the sun is shining, they're beautiful, those, what are they, cloud 9, cloud 7 clouds in the sky, sun is shining, it's a beautiful day. Or if it's raining, that's supposed to be not such a nice day, it's a miserable day. Right? But that's generally the way they judge. What is a good day, what is a bad day? Said, but for a devotee, did I hear any Hari Katha, the topics of Krishna, during this day? If I did, that was a good day. If my day was devoid of the topics of the Lord and his devotees, then that's a bad day. That was lamentable, a time wasted. We told, Dharmak swanustitak pungsang vishvak sena katasu yaha not pariyed yadi ritim shrama eva hikevalam. If whatever it is you're doing, we'll say, well, I do this. Here, this verse says, whatever it is you're doing, if the end result is not increased yearning to hear about Krishna, the Lord, and his devotees, Guru, Gauranga, Radha Govinda, etc., then you're, what does it say? Shrama eva hikevalam. Prabhupada's preferred way of translating that was a useless waste of time. You're wasting your time. Right? What does that say? Ayur harati vai pungsang. In the second canto, Sukadev saying the same thing. Sun rising, setting, and Gurudev liked the one from Shankaracharya. Haricharan Prabhu, before he passed away, he asked me, why did you put this one on Samadhi of Gurudev? Because, there's so many selected there, and Tyagi Maharaj did a wonderful job, and we got to suggest certain things. But this one, because Haricharan Prabhu would always find like some point of contention. He said, but this is Shankaracharya. Why? And I'm saying, no, that's why. Because he's Shankaracharya. He's the, Adi Guru of South India, the Shankaracharya. You can't ignore him. And this is his slok, and it was very favorite to Gurudev, the Dina Jamino one. It's similar to the Bhagavatam one, saying, every day the sun is rising and setting, where it's reminding us the time, the sands of time are running out. We're wasting our time if we're not engaged in Hari Kirtan, and, the seva of Guru, Gauranga, and Vaishnava. So anyway, this type of analysis we see is there from the higher devotees. They're looking for that critical point that will yield have the greatest devotional yield. So Kunti is thinking, and with Atma Samiksha, we all think about our lives. She's thinking about her life. It's only natural. We sit and reflect about what we've done. There are things we regret that we've done, things we lament about. The Brahma Bhuta Prasanat na sochati na kangshati. Not to be lamenting about lost opportunities or hankering for things that are, actually Guru says, loyam means, in one sense, easy, mundane things. But she's, as all sincere devotees, aspiring servitors shall do, she's engaged in a certain amount of self-reflection. So she's thinking, in our lives, when everything was going fine, there was a tendency to be forgetful of Krishna, not feel such a great necessity. But when we found ourselves in, you used the word obstacles, and also very adverse circumstances. The greatest adversity, at that time, the necessity of remembering Krishna and calling upon him for some grace came from the core of our hearts to the surface, and we became fully absorbed in what? Srotavyas, kirtitavyasta, smartavyas chestadhavayan. Hearing about Krishna, remembering him, singing his glories. So then she's making, thinking like this, she's making drawing a conclusion from what she's observed and saying. So, vipadak shantutak shashvat tatra tatra jagad guru bhavato darshanam yatsad apunar bhava darshanam. That then I think I do better under adverse circumstances. Adverse circumstances are good for me because they bring about remembrance of Krishna. And when I remember him, then the suffering aspect is finished with. Bhavato darshanam yatsad apunar bhava darshanam. We're talking about bhava rog, the material misery. And this becomes a fine point because, as I've mentioned, all suffering is on account of forgetfulness of our relationship with Krishna. The cure is remembrance of the same. Right? So this it's more easily understandable from our present position. Right? Bhayam ditya binibeshi tatshad. Ishara petasya viparyayo smriti. That's why we're overwhelmed by fear and anxiety, because we feel alone in the world. Even if we are surrounded by many people, we feel alone and fearful, full of anxiety, surrounded by, janma, mrityu, jara, vyadi, and the anityam, asukam, lokam, temporary, miserable existence. So that loneliness is only really addressed by remembrance of the Lord and his devotees. So Kunti, being very advanced, they said, she's praying for adverse circumstances and examination. It is a misunderstanding to think that if you're in school and the teacher, they have a flash quiz, all of a sudden they close the books, and then they, surprise all the students with a quiz. Or there's just the examination from time to time, and the final examination, those kind of things. In the Bhagavatam, we have the proper angle of vision for a devotee, tattenu kampam susamikshamano, to think, prasada leshanu grihite. They're thinking, atapite deva padambu jadvaya prasada leshanu grihite. That being examined by Krishna is mercy. They're not resentful of that. The students who think their teacher is cruel or mean by examining them or testing them, they don't understand. Actually, in this context, the teacher is an affectionate well-wisher. The teacher's concern is to promote the students, to familiarize them with the subject matter and promote them to the next level. They're not trying to fail anyone. Right? We're saying, at least theoretically. I know some, no, I had one, they're very, not like that. I'm giving an example of an affectionate, well-wishing teacher. Still, they're examining the students to promote them. That's why. So in a similar way, we're examined by the circumstances, karmic circumstance, the life we experience. It's not meant to make us fail, but rather to promote us to the next level, to not make us abandon Krishna consciousness or the Lord's protection, but rather to push us in that direction. And perhaps we come to the other question, Radha Raman Prabhu mentioning from Audio Veda regarding home. What is the real conception of home? And back to home. We hear Saraswati Thakur use the expression, back to home, back to Godhead. Srila Swami Maharaj had a magazine called Back to Godhead. Regularly, Srila Sridhar Maharaj speaks on this subject, sometimes invoking the Upanishads, Shrinvantu Mrishe Amritasya Putra. Right, saying, Amritasya Putra means children. Right? So it is an appeal, an Upanishadic appeal, saying, oh, Amritasya Putra, nectar children. What does that mean? Children of the nectar world. Well, the world we're living in is called Martya Loka. Mrityu, Martya, means the world of mortality. Right? Sometimes we have the expression in the Bhagavatam, Jivo Jivasya Jivanam, one living entity lives at the expense of another. I remember the Hieronymus Bosch, or whoever made a picture, big fish eat little fish. Right? Actually, it may have been another artist. But that picture, big fish eat little fish. Darwinian evolution. I just heard recently, they said, the Andromeda galaxy will devour the Milky Way. Like, this is going on many levels. They're saying, I mean, not next week, so, you know, but after so many years will go by, they're saying, here's Andromeda, here's the Milky Way, Andromeda will gobble up and then, so big fish eat little fish. So in the Martya Loka, the world of mortality, we're trying to establish a home here in a place that even by scientific estimation won't be here. It's not just a theistic assertion, but they say the world, it will, its lifespan, they differ on the exact date, but I mean time. Some say, 10 to the 12th power, 10 to the 15th power, 10 to the... But what they're in consensus about is it's limited. It has an expiration date. It's mentioned in the Gita, bhutva praliyate. It manifests and remains for some time, and then it's wound up and vanishes for some time, and then appears. And that's what we see going on in this world. Like if you see this field outside where we live, if in a year cycle, now it's lush, it's full of all this greenery, and they grew so many crops and things there. Now, when this rainy season stops, it'll become very dry. The farmers will go in, they'll burn everything, and it'll look horrible for a while, and everyone will be coughing on the smoke, and then the man will come with a, well, I don't know what you call it, the hoe, the machine that will plow the fields, a plow, right? Plow all the fields, they'll plant many things, then they'll do it all over again. Right? So in a world that is like that, appearing for some time and then vanishing, appearing and vanishing, where what shall be our home proper? If Guru Maharaj, in one place, he gave one lecture that began with him saying, sun rays are hitting the earth, right? And they're entering the earth. He says, but what is their home? It's actually the sun. The home of the sun rays is the sun. But they're hitting the earth, and we can observe something about that for some time. So here in this example, Krishna's the conscious sun. Mame vangsa jiva loke jiva bhuta sanatana. We're his rays. Kiran, like just like sun rays, magnitudinally different, the infinite and the finite. But spiritually conscious rays, sun rays, Amrita Putras, children of the immortal world, are temporarily identifying themselves as being members of the realm of time and space, of the temporary material world. Guru Maharaj reminds us, time and space, he says, it's a particular type of thinking. That's an understatement. It's a particular type of thinking, time and space. Yes, and we're riveted to this type of thinking, addicted to it. So, buried under layers of matter, Bhumirapo analo vayu kamano buddhirevacha ahankara itiyame bina prakritirastadha. Buried beneath, earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and ego is the soul. This rainy season reminds us of the Bhagavatam example. Is it na rarajo dupaschana swa jyotsna. I forget the Sanskrit now, but it says, just as there's a cloud comes in front of the moon in the rainy season, so you see the cloud, and it has a nice illumination around it. Maybe it looks very beautiful, but actually the cloud is not providing the illumination. It's the moon behind the cloud that is illuminating that cloud. So in this case, the cloud is the subtle body of mind, intellect, and ego that's housed in the gross body. So where, that soul, where is its home? Where is it home situated, located? In the conscious world. But it's trying to establish a home in the objective world. Not in the super subjective world of the spiritual reality, but here in this world. So it's a doomed activity from the beginning through misidentification. Right? So you only get a mirage of home, a mirage of family, affection, and interaction. The 10th canto of the Bhagavatam, verse Prabhupada liked very much, says, maybe it's in the prayers of the demigods, Yasyatma buddhi kunapedrida duke swadid kalatra dishuboma ijadi yatirtha buddhi shalile nakarhachid janeshu abhigeshu saeva gokara. Talks about how we identify the self, right? Nationality. Right? We see now in the world situation in so many different places. It may be very prominent now, but it comes cyclically. National identity. Then the conflict of different perceived national identities. Right? The inevitable conflict of perceived national identity as a means of self-determination. Right? All based on a bodily conception. Family life based on a bodily conception. So in that world where the body is mortal, the very world in which the body appears is mortal, where shall we establish our home? Our homeland? Pick a particular land and build a house there and call it a home? Right? And my history teacher used to tell us, she would say, you can sum up the whole of history, and she's talking about the way Western history is taught. She said, you can sum up the whole thing in one word, booty. And what that means is the spoils that go to the victors. There's some group of people, they live in a particular land, they have a particular national identity. And another group comes in and says, you know, your days are over, now we're in charge. They take their women, their land, change their name, your language is now illegal. Now you will speak our language. I mean, it's not any group of people, this is history, right? Then if you live that way for some time, long enough, then this is the way we do things, you know. This is home for us, right? And well, I'm sorry to inform you, it's not your home anymore. We own it now, and we own your women. You know, all your women are ours. Your land is ours. Your language is illegal. Now you have to live this way. Live this way for 50, 60, 70 years. Now we're very much at home with this until another group comes in. Right? So she said that one word, booty. It boils down to one word. I joke with one of our devotees, Madhur Priya. She's from Greece, and you know her she did some work for the studio, right? But because she's from Greece, I would joke and say sometimes in introducing her, I'd say, you know, her ancestors fought in the Peloponnesian War, right? I can see that no one's laughing proves my point. When you study history, and believe me, I was not good at this, but you study about the Hittite Empire, the Peloponnesian War that took place around 2,000 years ago, and it was very meaningful at the time, believe me, you know, or believe a historian. They'll make you study this, memorize the dates, and that'll be on your examination on the final day, you know, about the Hittite Empire and the Peloponnesian. And so she laughed, and then after she went home to Greece and came back when she said, you know, I found out my ancestors did fight in the Peloponnesian War. So there's always some war sometime. You know, I would be shocked when I started touring and preaching in Russia that every May, like the celebration of Great Patriotic War would come, and I would find out that the younger generation, say like now the teenagers, Russian teenagers now, they know very little about these things. And it's not relevant to them. They're thinking what's on V-Contact or, you know, on their smartphone or something. And so it's like shocking to me even to see that because I grew up at another time when this was like a big deal. Obviously, if you're born in the 50s, you grew up hearing about these things. It was like a deep impression was made upon you. Told, here's 100 years, it's 2014. World War I was 1914. So it was the 100th anniversary of World War I. What is another name for World War I? Surprisingly, the war to end all wars. Right? That's what, after that they thought, this was so devastating, this was so horrible, certainly we won't have another one. I mean, now it sounds laughable. World War I was called the war to end all wars. And as I'm speaking, there are wars going on all over the world of people fighting over, like, is this your home or my home? Is this your homeland or my homeland? And if you don't accept my concept of that, I'm going to blow your brains out. No offense. I mean, with affection. So, you know, I hate to dwell on something so inauspicious, and as I say, these things are cyclical. And right now, maybe it's appears to be a darker time than other times because of just the sheer amount of global conflict. But in one sense, it's also inevitable for this plane. Right? So, and here, this land we have, you know, that is owned by the Full Dome Pro company. In Thailand, they have all these levels of stuff, and one called Chinot. Right? So they say, you have to really be sure the land that you're getting, that, you know, that it's yours. Otherwise, after some time, someone else comes and goes, this is my home. Some little Thai guy builds a hut on your property. So I remember Prabhupada told this story of the sage who is sitting on the bank of the Ganga. And we're told, you know, he's there and he doesn't have a hut or anything. He's just on the banks of the Ganga. And every time Brahma dies, one hair will fall out of his head. When all the hairs fall out of his head, then he'll die. So when people said, but Prabhupada, Brahma's, you know, he said, it's just a story. Okay? But I mean, that's it. So Brahma lives for roughly 311 trillion years and change. Right? So when he dies, one hair falls out of his head. When all, okay, then he'll. So someone noticed, but he's not making a hut. Right? They said, don't you think you should like make a hut or a little house for, he goes, oh, I don't expect to be here that long. That's what Guru Maharaj means when he says time and space is a type of thought. Guru Maharaj can say that. He has the audacity to say that. This whole world that's overwhelming to us, as you say, to the point of like being, we want to go to our home, it's inescapable. How we're like those lost children. How can Amrita, Srinvantu Vishay, Amritasya Putra, children of the nectar world, please listen to me. That's what it's saying. Through sound, by honing in on the divine sound, you can start moving in the direction of your home, which the good news is, we're so addicted to thinking of things in terms of time and space that we think it's very far away. Right? Like tad ture, tarantike, tarantarasya, sarvasya, taru sarvasya bhahyataha. Right? When Guru Maharaj's relative said to him, you know, there are some stars, maybe their light has not reached the earth yet. They're that far away. And do you think God has any time for people like us? We're so insignificant. And Guru Maharaj responded by saying, yeah, tadure, he's very far away, but tarantike, he's very near as well. Is there anywhere where God is not? So the bad news is we're addicted to thinking of things in terms of time and space. Right? We think this is all there is. We do. Even though we heard so many things, still we're thinking, you know, well, this, you can stand on it, you can build stuff on it, you can get a chinote. You know? When the Krishna Priya and Paramananda bought some property, and we're talking about a Thai, like farmer, you know, villager type person. So he goes down to the land office with them, and then they pull out, you know, like a check for the amount. And he goes, what is that? And they go, this is the money. He said, that is not money. He wanted to see like a suitcase of Thai baht. He said, no, he'd never seen anything like it. They hand him a piece. He has land with trees and ponds and mango trees, banana trees, and, you know, like, you know, lilavati flowers. And they go, here's a piece of paper. He said, no. He wouldn't accept it. So they had to go get the police chief. And when they got the police chief, who's a very cool guy, the police chief said to him in Thai, he said, look, Baba, he said, just trust me, it's money. And he said, and if you don't accept it, I'm going to arrest you and throw you in jail. Only then did the man like accept it, and they went to a bank, and he, you know, like, so a very sweet person, I think. But the point is, where is the value? Guru Maharaj will say, yeah, it's not in the paper. He's right. That paper has no value, but it's in the goodwill that's behind the paper. That's where it lies. So it has that value. It's meaningful in another plane. So we have to invert our thinking here because we're running out of time. Also, even if you get a nice little setup with chinote, right, you will be ousted. That's what is in that sloka of Shankaracharya. That's why we put it, what's in the Bhagavatam. Even if things are going well, they're not going to end well. Because, you know, janma, mrityu, jara, vyadhi, mrityu sarvaharas chaham. If it doesn't happen any other way, it happens in the form of death. And suddenly, it's all, it all comes into perspective, right? How meaningless, or how meaningless in the sense of it cannot help us. Right? So Guru Maharaj say, people say, what is the value of philosophy? Right? Since in the 1960s, many people were studying so-called liberal arts and philosophy and things like that. Maybe they didn't want to go to war, or maybe the war made them think more about their mortality. But they were studying like that. But in time, people say, yeah, what can you do with a degree in philosophy except be a teacher? Teach other people the same thing. But Guru Maharaj will say, when it comes to dealing with death, then you'll understand the value of philosophy. So it's on this point, now philosophy starts making sense to us. Remember, after all the things Sukadev spoke to Parikshit Maharaj in the Bhagavatam, 10th canto, Krishna Lila, 11th canto, 12th canto, Kali Yuga, all these things. I like that verse Gurudev liked to quote in Guru Maharaj, Tantu Rajan Murishyeti Pashu Budhim Imam Jahi. It's almost like a, what's the word? Not chastisement, there's another word. Means similar, like a reminder. He's saying, what? My dear king, Tantu Rajan Murishyeti, remember, this is the world of mortality. And he said, Pashu Budhim Imam Jahi. And to think you're part of this, that's Pashu Budhi, means animal intelligence. Animals think like that, right? So it seems almost brutal or a little rough and crude, but it's maybe at that point, I mean, it's a play also, because now he's given all these beautiful spiritual instructions, and now what are we going to hear? Parikshit Maharaj, like, he's going to turn off his senses, the bodily sense, the sight, hearing, like the way we turn off the light, sound, power, water, etc. He's going to disconnect from that. Right? So sooner or later, we have to disconnect from this plane. I like the word in English, I think it's Greek and its roots, nostalgia. Is it Greek or Latin? Do you know, Dina? Nostalgia. Anyway, it's Greek or Latin. Nosta means home, huh? No, it's not French. Algia, like neuralgia, means a headache. Neuralgia, pain in the brain. Greek. Nosos. What's the Russian word for home? Dome. Okay. Anyway, here it's nosos, algia, the pain of wanting to return to your home. So it's a very peculiar thing, because we say jiva tatsata shakti on the margin. We're yearning for the home that our origin, but have we really penetrated deep into that domain? We're told in the Gita, once you reach that plane, you'll never leave that. That's the good news, right? But there's a hankering within our hearts to be in that plane where, unlike this world where, the soil may be your enemy, the water may be your enemy, the air may pollute you, you have to watch your back at every moment, where the soil has your interest at heart. That's what it means by home. Only the world where the soil has your self-interest at heart more than you do could not really be your home, where everything is your friend. One is, instead of jivo shidjivanam, one exploiting another, everyone is serving each other. So, this is what I wanted to say. So by moving in the direction of this plane, which is a plane of consciousness, that means here you can feel it. You can come in connection with that world. Rupa Goswami said, Iha yasya harer dasye karmana manasagira nikalasvapi avastashu jivan mukta sa uchite. It's possible even in this lifetime. How? Karmana manasa gira. By what you do, by what you think, by what you talk about, then we can transcend the world of time and space and come in connection with the immortal world. So, Kunti, to connect it to her, she'll say, then when things go wrong here, that's good. That'll make you a doinya atmani vedam goptritve baran. You'll realize what to speak of helping others, I can't even help myself. It takes courage to embrace that position. That's not being a weak-minded, wimp, right? It takes courage to admit truthfully, what to speak of help others, I cannot really truly help myself. I need grace, divine grace. It's good to be in a position of that type of want and necessity. Then you're a good receiver for divine grace, from some help from the upper world. Sun rays are touching the earth. Its home is in the sun. So we're here in this plane, but really we're members of the spiritually conscious world, and more specifically, the Krishna conscious world. And Guru Maharaj would sit and tapping his chair in the afternoon, smiling, saying, I'm just counting the days. like he was happy to go there. And those who bring us this news are our real friends. Guru Maharaj gave that example. Maybe Prabhupada did too. Everybody does. Maybe it came from Saraswati Thakur, of the child of the wealthy father who's become mad and he's living in the street, eating garbage, just mad. And then someone sees him and recognizes him and says, don't you know you're the son of so-and-so? Tells them about their actual identity. Right? That puts an end, by bringing that news to them, puts an end to that condition. We're in a similar position. So by reflection, we have to think about all these things carefully. What is our actual identity? I've told our reality potential as servitors, and try incrementally to move in that direction. Krishna will not abandon his own. Right? Kaunteya prati janihi name bhakta pranashati. And that Ramayan slok. Once he accepts someone, so all we need is to be sincere in our necessity. Then we'll feel some connection, even in this plane, with our home, our actual home, spiritually conscious home. And really, Goloka Vrindavan Krishna conception is the ultimate family life, home life, everything. When we, with Srila Shrava Prabhu, Vaishnava Maharaj, we spent some time in Bombay. I'm just thinking of it. But there was Prabhupada was there over some time, and there's so many life members. And there was this one really old man, and he kind of like come to live in the ashram and just leave the world. That was his idea. Now I just want to be with the devotees, live in the ashram and go. And we were all like in our 20s. I was like 24 years old. And he liked being with the brahmacharis, and it was really fun for him. But he also wanted to encourage us, right? Because we're trying to be brahmacharis and everything, that maybe won't be enamored by household life. So every now and then he'd like share some of his personal history with us to give us some backing, and he was very intense, And he said, and he told us he said about his wife and family. He said, my wife and family were like mosquitoes biting me in the night. We're like, wow, you know. I thought, that was his home, his family. He was, you know, giving us some encouragement. But the way he said it with such earnestness. And I was at the Calcutta airport once. A flight was delayed. Like an hour flight was delayed for 12 hours. And as you can see, I'm still upset. Anyway, this man, you know, there's always some men, they see you, you know, oh, Swami, you know, and they want to, like, you know, stay with you some time, share some things. And this man, he was saying, like, Swamiji, if I win the lottery, then I will take all the money and give it to my wife. And there's some people, they're going like, what a nice man, you know, how sweet is that? He said, and with folded palms tell her, please, release me, release me. So he was trying to give us some encouragement. Krishna has blessed us in different ways. That type of, like, honesty amongst, and I'm saying, these are people who spent, just to give it some context, spent their whole lives being dutiful. These are not like people like us. I mean, they did everything dharmically, what was expected of them. Men, women, and not implying anything other than what was there. Just that's something that's hard for us to understand sometimes in the West, how dutiful the people of India are, like the real grihastas there, act in terms of their, like, family obligation, what was expected of them. They're just truly worshipable people. Forget all this stuff we see and that's in the modern media and all that. We've had so many experiences and interaction with our friends, worshipable friends in India too, that we're truly impressed with. And that group of people, they will sit at the feet of some devotee from the West, whether it's like myself or anybody else, and very humbly listen. And you could say, you know, as the way say, blasting, and they sit there humbly. Our friend in San Jose, who's literally a NASA rocket scientist, Mr. Banerjee. He and his wife, Arun and Alpa Banerjee, they're like some of the first Bengali devotees to come to the center there. He's a rocket scientist, and respected all over America, all over the world. Will sit, you know, on the floor while one of our devotees is on the asana, you know, giving a talk about Krishna consciousness. No ego. They're eager to hear something, thinking himself, oh, I'm just a fallen householder. What do I know? Man was super qualified, super educated. He's saying, what do I know of these things? That sort of humility. After a lifetime of devotion and acting responsibly, dharmically, whenever, to sit at the feet of Guru and Vaishnava and to hear submissively and accept their instructions, their direction, which way to go, to proceed. So our faith is in our Guru Varga. If it contradicts what we see before our eyes, it must. Oh. Seeing a snake as a rope as a snake. It's interesting. That's also in the Bhagavatam, in the Brahma Stuti. And as long as you're seeing a rope as a snake, you're filled with the fear of being bitten, poisoned. You're in an abnormal state. That's what we're doing. That's why it's given in different ways. Sometimes as the example of having faith, but here in the Brahma Stuti, it's given in an interesting way. As long as you're mistaking a rope as a snake, you're going to be full of fear. And that's what we're doing. We're mistaking this world as our home, and we're full of fear and anxiety. And no amount of money or false sense of security is going to remedy the situation. The sooner we see it for what it is, then we can deal with it in a substantial way and also overcome the fear. And I think that's what Sukadeva is telling Parikshit Maharaj. And all these great slokas, what they're telling us. Because we have to be honest and admit, we are fearful because we're seeing a rope as a snake. We're misidentifying. But if we can change our perspective by the grace of Guru and Vaishnava, Sadhu Shastra, then not only can we start seeing things clearly and how to proceed in the right direction, but that fear will vanish. Like we sing in the song, Abhaya Charanarvindare Bhajahune Manasri Nandanandana. Hare Krishna. Hari Harai Namo Krishna Yadavaya Namo.